All right, this is 10.1 in Math 103, and we're going to be talking about percents, fractions, and decimals. So the definition of a percent is broken up into two parts of the word: per, meaning of, and cent, meaning 100. So when I talk about percent, I'm thinking of 100. And these two zeros at the end of 100 are significant, which means we're going to be moving two places to the left or right, depending on what we're converting, okay? So changing a fraction to a percent, we have the numerator, which is the top number, and I abbreviate this N, over the denominator, which is the bottom number, and I abbreviate this D. So step one, to convert a fraction to a percent, we are going to take the numerator and divide it by the denominator, and then multiply that by 100, and then add a percent sign. So, for example, we're going to do these problems right here. So when I take 11 20ths on my calculator, 11 divided by 20 times 100. And that's going to give me 55%. 15 sixteenths is 15 divided by 16 times 100, which gives me 93.75%. And so we want to make sure that we don't round unless it specifically asks us to round. So we would leave all decimal places there. So the last two, 3 divided by 5 times 100. And that will be 60%. And 7 divided by 8 times 100 will be 87.5%. Now, when we convert a decimal to a percent, I use what's called the Dr. Pepper method. So DP. So when I am going from a decimal to a percent, I am going to be moving my decimal point 2 places to the right. So my steps: move decimal point 2 places to the right. And then we will add a percent sign. So, for example, 0.14, if I see the decimal point, which I should see the decimal point, I will go 1, 2, put it there, and that gives me 14%. Now, I don't have to put the decimal point after the 4. I will just write 14%. Go 1, 2, this becomes 89.3%. And don't leave any of the numbers off. 1, 2, this becomes 76.25%. And this one, we've got 1, 2, whoops, sorry. We got 1, 2, we have to add a 0, and that becomes 350%. So we can obviously have more than 100%. We can also have less than 1%, which we'll see on the last problem. Now, this one often gets students confused going the other way, but 0.02 is 2%, and this becomes 0.57%. So now we're going to go the opposite direction. We're going to convert a percent to a decimal. So again, if I think of the Dr. Pepper method, I am now going from this direction to there. So first step is we're going to drop the percent sign. And then we're going to move the decimal 2 places to the left, okay? Adding zeros where necessary. So we're going to look at these problems right here. So 35%, we drop the percent sign and we move 2 places to the left. So if the decimal point is there, we go 1, 2, it becomes 0.35. So essentially what you're doing is you are taking 35% and that is becoming 35 over 100. And if I take 35 and divide it by 100, I'm going to get 0.35. So you can do it that way, or you can think of the Dr. Pepper method, drop the percent sign, move the decimal place 2 places to the left. So rewriting this without the percent sign, 2 places to the left, this becomes 0.689. I'm going to come back to the fractions. Let's try this next one. Drop the percent sign. Here's the decimal point. 1, 2. This becomes 3.2. Drop the percent sign, 2 places to the left, this becomes 0.765. Now these we have to first change fraction to a decimal, which hopefully you should know 1/2% is going to equal 0.5%. And then we drop the percent sign and move it 2 places to the left. So my answer is going to be 0.005. Same thing for this one. 1/4% is the same as 0.25%, which then I can drop the percent sign and move it 2 places to the left. And so my final answer would be 0.0025. All right, so some application problems that we're going to be doing. One of these, and these formulas will be given to you on the test, but I like to rewrite them a little bit differently so that you can find the values easier than what they're suggesting. So the amount in the latest period, I call that the new value. Then I'm going to subtract the amount in the previous period, which is the original value, and I will always divide by the number that I am subtracting on the numerator. So I will always divide by the original answer. Now you will either get a positive answer, means it is a percent increase, and a negative answer means it is a percent decrease. Now the trick is here, we don't actually put the negative with our answer. The word decrease, this word right here, takes care of the negative sign. And I'll show you what I mean in just a second. So coming down to the first example, we have a Major League Baseball team. In 2013, they won 78 games, but in 2014, they won 98 games, okay? So 78 is my original, and 98 is my new. And we're looking for a percent increase, which means that it's going to be a positive number, okay? So I substitute the values in. I always take the new value and subtract the original value, and then divide it by the original value, and then I multiply that by 100. Now here's where you have to be careful. When you enter this in your calculator, you must either hit equals after your subtraction sign or put those in parentheses. And we're going to just say round to 1 decimal place, okay? So as I do this, when I take 98 minus 78, I'm going to get 20, and then I'm going to take 20 divided by 78, and then multiply it by 100. And that will give me 25.6% increase, okay? Now, the next one is a decrease, okay? So we're talking about McDonald's stock. It started at $103.53, but then it ended to $89.91. So this is my original value, and this is my new value. And we're going to have a percent of change, which is going to be a decrease. So let's put those values in. So we will have 89.91 and subtract 103.53, and we're going to divide that by 103.53 and then multiply it by 100. So again, you're going to get a negative number, and we're going to round it to one decimal place, and as I get that answer, I will have the negative 13.2, but what you're going to see in my math lab is you're going to see a box, and then it's going to be followed by the word decrease. And so you're not actually going to enter the negative sign. The negative sign is taken care of with the word decrease. So make sure, because if you put the negative sign in there, it's going to mark it wrong, okay? So I'm going to let you guys do the next two on your own, and I will post those in your notes. Now we're going to look at the same idea, but we're going to be talking about percent markup and mark down. So mark up, obviously, is an increase, and mark down is a decrease. So now, instead of having original and new and all that stuff, we have selling price minus the dealer's cost all over the dealer's cost. So again, the formula doesn't change. The thing that you are subtracting is always the number that you will be dividing by, okay? So this one is in two pieces. First, it says they buy, the dealer's cost is $48.76. And then they're going to sell it for $79.88. So in my formula, I take the selling price minus the dealer's cost divided by the dealer's cost and then times it by 100. And so when I do that, I am going to get a positive number, and this is going to be, we'll just say one decimal place again, 63.8% increase, okay? Now, for the next problem, they're going to say, okay, we're going to mark this thing down on sale. And so on sale, we're now going to sell it for $69.99. So this now is my selling price. The dealer's cost hasn't changed. So now we have $69.99 minus $48.76. Again, hit either equals or put this in parentheses, divide it by 48.76, and then times it by 100. And this will still give you an increase, and it'll be 43.5% increase, okay? And so this is rounded to the nearest tenth. Remember, 10 has 1 0, so tenth should have one decimal place. 100 has 2 zeros, so hundredth should have 2 decimal places, okay? All right, so let's try this one. This one is going to be a mark down, which means we will have a negative number, okay? But again, we're going to just say the negative is going to be in the word markdown. So we're going to try this one. We have the dealer's cost was $5, and then they mark it down to $4. So the selling price, that's the selling price, $4 minus the dealer's cost, which is $5, divided by the dealer's cost, which was 5, and times it by 100. And so we are going to get a negative 20, but in our box, we're going to put a 20%, and it's going to be followed by the word mark down. Okay, let's try one more, and then we're going to go to some generic percent formulas. So the cost is $35, so dealer's cost is $35. They're going to sell it for $49, so selling price is $49. So the percent markup, this is a percent markup. We go 49 minus 35 divided by 35 times 100. And we'll take it one decimal place. I think this one actually comes out very even. So it should be a 40% markup. And I just put arrows for markup or markdown. Okay. All right. So now we're going to talk about other percent problems that you're going to come across in your MyMathLab. So I have a no-fail formula. So right here, we're going to set up a proportion, and it's going to always start as blank equals blank over 100. And we'll notice that in a percent relationship, we always have a part to whole relationship. So if I eat half a pizza, you know what percent I have eaten. You know I've eaten part of the pizza, and the whole pizza is the whole thing. So these words that are going to indicate part and whole are going to be is and of. Then I'm going to find the word percent or the word percent sign, and I'm going to put that number over 100. So what you need to make sure that you understand here is you are simply going to drop the percent sign and put the number over 100. You do not change the percent to a decimal, okay? And then once we get this formula, then we are going to cross multiply. So we're going to look at these setups using these next examples, okay? So I always start blank equals blank over 100. And then I go, what is? That is the missing part. 15%, that number without the percent sign goes over 100. The percent sign is taken care of by the 100. And then it says of 45. So now when I enter this on my calculator, I find the two numbers that are diagonal from each other, and I multiply them, and then I always divide by the number that is across from the variable. So 45 times 15 divided by 100 comes out to be $6.75. And since we're talking about money, I know it's $6.75, okay? All right, so this one, what is, we start blank equals blank over 100. What is, that's my X. 6.5, the percent sign just simply gets dropped. I'm not changing anything about the number. I'm simply dropping the percent sign of 150. So set it up, 150 times 6.5 divided by 100. And that equals $9.75, okay? So now, the next problems are very similar, but what happens is the wording is changed a little bit. It said what is in both of those last examples, but now it says 12% of 40 is what number? So blank equals blank over 100. 12%, that's going to go over the 100 of 40 is what number? So it's the same setup, it's just a different format of the wording. So 40 times 12 divided by 100 is equal to 4.8. And there's no money sign there, so that's just my answer, okay? Blank equals blank over 100. And now I have 32%. That goes here, of 50 is what number? So 32 times 50 divided by 100 gives me 16. So all these problems so far have been missing, keep going, missing the part, okay? So now we're going to start missing the percent, okay? So now we do this one. What percent? So blank equals blank over 100, and what percent goes right there? Of 96 is 24. So now we're going to do this multiplication. 24 times 100 divided by 96. And now this is the only one that requires a percent sign, so 25% is the correct answer. All right, blank equals blank over 100. And now we have what percent, that's X, of 75, that's my whole, is 15. So 15 times 100 divided by 75. And that gives me 20%. Okay, so these two were missing the percent. And then the last two, we're going to be missing the whole. Missing the whole part. So blank equals blank over 100. And we have 21 is, that's my part, 14%, that goes over 100, of what number? So we find the two numbers diagonal, 21 times 100 divided by 14. And that gives me 150. Okay, 48 is 60% of what number? So 48, well, it's blank equals blank over 100. So we're going to go 48 is 60% of what number? So cross multiply, 48 times 100 divided by 60, and that gives me 80. So that finishes 10.1.